And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I'm your host, Wes Tankersley. We got Robert Watson in the house. We're going through Ars Victorious, and guess what we have today? Why don't you show them what you just showed me?
Let's see if I can get it in the right frame. There we go.
We got the book. It is out. It is
Yeah,
on
so this is
Amazon, correct?
it is. This is my whatever it's called, the not for resale version. This is how I get to check everything to make sure it still showed up. And I had to make some changes real quick. So surprise, surprise.
You had to make some. What is up, Nikki? Nikki's already purchased it, so she's got it coming. You had to make some changes when the hard copy showed up, or you had to make some changes after the fact.
Well, so what happened was I got the book and I got my my protocopy, I guess it's called, and I looked and I said, "Oh crap, they didn't do grayscale very well." So there were certain two graphs in there that did not turn out well. So I literally reloaded them, and so everybody that's got the book actually will be fine. They'll get the updated version, but I didn't realize how grayscale turns out. So it's just part of the printing process, no big deal. But again, this is the process of learning, right?
Yep.
Wow.
And it'll look different. It'll look different because you can get it digital, right? You can order a hard copy paperback or whatever.
Yeah, so the digital is in color. The hardback is in black and white. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that color is one of those things that cost a ton more money.
It cost a ton more money, yeah.
And I looked it up this morning. It's there on Amazon, so you can get it for $14.99 for a paperback, or you can get it for $9.99 for the Kindle copy if you prefer the digital. And we'll put those links in the show notes so that you guys can find it. But it is out. We've been talking about it for 2-3 months now. We've known it's coming out, but we finally got it out. So beautiful.
Yeah, it's a nice accomplishment to finally get. I'm trying to remember what this story is. Oh gosh, this is a fun story today. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about having that book in your hands. I feel like that's got to be like, did you open it and like big sigh of relief?
It's a little surreal, right? You've done all this energy and stuff, and you talk to people, and so you've got this physical book in your hand. You're like, okay, and all you don't get this relief sense, right? You get this, oh crap, I hope everything went well, right? And so I don't know when everybody gets to take a bow for whatever they do. I'm not sure what that is. I think maybe it's like 2 years down the road when they realize they've survived. But I kind of looked at it, I flipped open the pages and started looking at the quality, and nothing turns out the way you think. Right. Some things went better, some things went worse. The first time around process is a learning experience, like everything, like these podcasts, like the book. I wish I could say they were really polished, but they're not.
I think one of the things that we have to remember is that even though it's out, even though it's there, people like you and I, and people like a lot of people that we interact with, are never satisfied. And it is something that, we've talked about this. You're going to write more than one. This is the first one, but as you go, I can guarantee someone like you is thinking about, what am I going to do differently in the next one?
Oh gosh, yes. I already know exactly how I want to approach it, how I want to handle graphics, how I want to handle the theme. Yeah. This is all, I love the process, but I think the one thing about this is that it's kind of permanent, right? The book is out. It's going to be whatever it is. And so you're like, well, let's just improve on the next one, right? Just like the color on my background is supposed to be blue.
Right.
Okay. That's not blue.
The lighting has made it
purple.
Almost purple.
It's purple.
Right.
Like I said, the best intentions, I just laugh at life. You try to do the best you can and you end up with this something slightly imprecise version of what you were attempting to do.
Yeah, and the funny thing is you have two choices, right? Yeah, it's purple. I can sit there and stew on it and we won't do it this week. We won't do it next week. We got to wait for the right color to come in, or we can just freaking make it happen.
That's pretty much what I've done. I've just said, you know what, forget this noise and when I go to the next setup, I'll worry about it,
Yep.
right? As we go to the next stage, as we've talked about going to the next stage of what we're going to try to accomplish with podcasting. So I'll
Yeah,
worry
well,
about the next
I
step.
think you have a good. I think now it's time that I need to start reaching out to some of my people and get you on some other shows and stuff to kind of get you to push this out for more than just one podcast. You know, I mean, this is cool. This is you and me, but let's get you some other places. Now that you're kind of honed in on it, I know you don't like talking. You're gonna have to figure it out. You got to do the book tour.
Yeah, I know. Well, it was also like the first thing right out of the shoot was my friend says, "Where's the audio book?" I went, "Well, it's always best if you do the audio." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Really? Do I have to?" Okay. Can I get somebody else to do it? It's always better if you do it. I said, okay. So
Yeah.
can you imagine after doing all this, you want to go do that? You want to talk your entire book through?
I doubt it'll be the last time you read it. I mean, I feel like you're going through it, you're reliving it, you're going through it over and over again. And when you read it, the funny thing is probably when you read it yourself, you're gonna be like, "Oh, I should have done this and I should have done that."
That's exactly right. There's a part of me that doesn't want to read it, right? Going, did you really read that the first time? That didn't sound the way you wanted it to, but
Yeah,
that's life. That's life.
that's a
And Nikki, thank
process. You got to find a soundproof room and just do it.
yeah, and Nikki, thank you. The purple, I appreciate that.
Yeah, Nikki's been there from the beginning, so it's awesome to have her see that. So I'm glad she's got that paperback coming, that book coming. Well, let's talk about this week's chapter. And this is one of my favorite things. I mean, yesterday I had a little bout with my daughter. I will never tell my daughter that she is overweight, but she will tell me over and over again that she is overweight. And I said, well, what do you want to do? Like, let's just exercise. If you think that this is a problem, let's just exercise. And she says, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. And aptly so, this is called practice. So I told her yesterday, we have to practice at everything we do to get good at it. We can't just instantly be good at it.
Yeah, and I think probably the other thing for most people is they realize that a lot of practice doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense in the moment while you're doing it. But I remember it was my junior year in high school, and we were playing basketball and we were doing really, really well. We got started kind of slow, but we ended up like, I think, like 33-2 or 33-3. We ended up, but that didn't even matter. The wins didn't matter. What mattered was the last game, right? We played a team that was kind of our arch nemesis, and everything came together. All the practices, and it was like magic, right? There was this flow in the game. We looked, we made the right passes, we saw the right things. There was this, and I mean, we just dominated from buzzer to buzzer, right? And it was kind of one of those magical experiences that you're like, well, how did that ever come to pass? And that's hours and hours and hours of practice, right? And it just so happened our coach happened to go to high school in our nemesis high school. So
Oh,
for him, oh yeah, so for him it was a little bit sweeter, right?
yeah.
I mean, we blew him away by like 30 points. I mean, it was just a trashing. But the reality is it was just beautiful. It was seamless. It had this flow. And that's what I've always found is you grind through practice to get to this point where everything is just seamless. You do the right things kind of unconsciously, right?
Yeah.
And there's just and that's really what the chapter is. It's basically I'm flying VFR on an instrument flight plan into Centennial Airport, and I'm flying straight and level. I think at 12,000, something like that, and everything is going fine. And then the next moment, literally the next moment, I am staring at the sky. I am for a plane. That's a bad thing. Straight and level, my wings catch air that way, and I'm literally at that moment inverted where I'm looking up at the sky and my propeller is the only thing holding me in the air. Okay. Which is like, I went, that's not natural. You don't go from straight and level flight at 200 plus miles an hour to your nose up.
Right.
I didn't do anything. I mean, I did absolutely nothing. What happened was I got caught in what's called a microburst. And so the microburst basically is this up down whooshing that pushes your wings down, basically pushes them down and up. and you end up nose up. And basically what that is kind of a crash posture. Well, the hard deck at this time, which is the Earth, is not at zero. It's at like 3,700 feet. So I've got approximately 8,000 feet to fall, and I'm falling fast. I mean, I'm falling, you know, I don't know, probably 2,000 feet a minute, something like that. I mean, it's quick. And so you're trying to make sense of a situation that makes absolutely no sense. But what you do is you just go right into that practice mode of what you've done a gazillion times, right?
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of like, and thank God I'm really good about not keeping open containers in my plane,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because basically everything in the plane got washed immediately, like thrown, and there's not a lot of loose stuff. Everything's pretty much kept, but you're inverted. And so, you're straining at that point, trying to figure out what's up. And at this point, you start going into that mode of just, I got to push my nose down. I got to get my nose down. I got to get my nose down. Anything, because if not, I got to pull the parachute. And I'm in a really odd position because at that point, the parachute's going to eject out the back and it's not going to eject out the top. And so then I got to wonder if it's going to catch air or not. So I've got to get my nose down as fast as I can. And I don't really panic, and I don't really do anything other than what I had practiced 1,000 times, right? I just keep pushing my nose down, keep pushing my nose. So, I've got the stick just fully inflex forward to basically try to catch air. And I lost 2,000 feet and in a snap, right? And I finally caught air. And at the meantime, which is always so funny, is I think Denver Center calls and said, hey, you're at the wrong altitude. And I'm like, yeah.
Tell me something I didn't know.
I mean, it's kind of like they don't know what's going on, right? They
Yeah.
just know I was at 12 and now I'm at like 9, right? In the split second. And they're like, or they don't ask if you're okay. They just say, basically they ask me what my altitude is. And I basically calmly just tell them, and I just diagnosed it as fast as I could. I said, got hit with a microburst, lost 3,000 feet. We'll climb and maintain 12,000, whatever I said, right?
Right.
Something to that effect was, in other words, I'll try to get my ass back up to the right altitude. And they were really cool about it. They were just like, oh, okay, da 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 da. And, life goes on, right? I'm not dead. Life goes on. But all you wanted to just remember is that you don't freak out because you do exactly what you practiced so many times, right? You just keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, and pray that what you're doing catches air, and it did. So, but it goes back to the idea of practice is there's nothing perfect. Just keep doing it over and over again. And somebody would go, why in the world would you practice something like that? Well, for events like that.
Right.
Right. Just I was going over the Rocky Mountains, and I think I was like 14, and all of a sudden, I was getting this major downdraft, right? It kept pushing me down and pushing me down. I couldn't keep altitude. And they keep telling me, hey, you got to fly and maintain 14,000. I'm going, I can't. I literally can't. My plane will not. And they keep going through diagnostics, and all of a sudden I got this. If somebody would have taken a giant tub of ice and smashed it on my front windshield, right? I mean, out of nowhere. And it's all this stuff that hits you out of nowhere, and you just kind of go, okay, well, let me just deal with that next problem, and I'll deal with that next problem. All because you had spent countless hours practicing, how to fly straight and level, right? In all kinds of really crappy conditions. And so that's kind of like life, right? Um, you can't expect to respond well to situations that you've never practiced.
Yeah. And I think, I've talked to a lot of people about anything in general, like with this situation, we're flying a plane, but anything in life, like we always tend to kind of look at the end result and try to put that fire out first, but you really have to put the one out that's directly in front of you.
Yeah.
You may have a customer, like for me, like in a sales gig, I have a customer who's pissed off right now. That isn't going to help me give the next person that I'm working on's quote, because now I'm going to be thinking about that the whole time while I'm trying to do this. And it's like, I'd rather just take care of that problem that's in front of me immediately and, put the pressing matter in front of me. Because if you don't, you probably would have pulled that parachute first. Like, forget this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're if you panic, well, the thing that always bothered me about the parachute was it cost $60,000 to pull. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not cheap.
So
It's not the same one that you get when you're skydiving, right?
no. And so because what it does is it tears out the composite. It's got a jettison pack in it, basically tears out the top composite of the plane and projects it like a mortar upwards, right? I love that. You got to love the little icon in my screen. Did you see that? You hadn't had that yet?
No, that's they do that on Instagram, so it's weird. I've never seen that before. We got a thumbs up on the screen. Cool.
Cool. Yeah, so yeah, it tears out the composite. So when they put the chute back in, they repack it and they repair the composite. So it costs about $60,000. Now, of course, $60,000 is nothing to save your life.
That was the first thing I was
Right.
thinking about. I was like, hey, okay, so is your life worth 60? But the thing is that like it's a situation where most people don't like. I mean, you have the choice, right? But you're training because you practiced what you were supposed to do. You didn't bail out. You're like, you know what? I can fix this situation. And if I get to a point where I can't fix this situation, which is okay, so your hard deck was whatever it was, but what's the hard deck for like when it's time to pull the parachute? At what point do you decide you're going to pull the parachute?
Yeah, I had about another 2,000, 2,500 feet to fall before I would have been forced to do something, right?
Yeah.
And so I wasn't at that point where it was kind of do or die. You're shoot. So one of the thing about it being a ballistic parachute is it projects out, so you
Yeah.
get to do this really low. Like you can probably pull it at 1,000 feet and be fine.
Because it'll kick you back
So
up to where you need to be.
yeah, and so that's a huge positive. I mean that they've tested this in real life, of course, and they have zero fatalities from pulling the chute. In other words, it saves the pilot and passengers 100% of the time.
Yeah, that's one of
Uh,
the cool ones that comes out with the seat, right? Maybe.
well, no,
It's not a fighter. It's not a fighter jet.
no, it's not a fighter. Oh my God, they have this little plane called an L-39, which is this trainer from the old Soviet days, right?
Mhm.
And it does have a hot seat. And they do have them here in the United States, and they're old trainers. They're 50, 60 years old, whatever they are. But they do come with a hot seat. Can you imagine ejecting? I'm just like, nah. I'm like,
It'd have been. I don't know. I
so
mean,
many things can go wrong.
yeah. Well, I mean, it always goes back to Top Gun when Goose hit the freaking lid.
Yeah, yeah. Top Gun. It's so funny. That's our references in life, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you think of fighter pilots, that's the first thing everyone thinks about because no one's ever really been in one. Well, I mean, the
Yeah.
people who fly them, but that's a very small amount of
Yeah,
people in
it's a
this
tiny.
world. I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's a tiny universe.
Yeah.
Really, really tiny universe. But yeah, the practice thing is just it's so key to just understanding repetition, and repetition for most people is boring, so they don't do it. And it's guys like I'm told, guys, I've talked about Michael Jordan and Colby and those guys who do things, over and over and over again. And, when practice ends, they're still there.
Yeah.
They take another hour.
I was on a last night. So there's so Will Clark, who's I'm sure you know who he is. Used to
Yeah.
play baseball for the Giants, and Eric Burns, who used to play for. I'm staring at his bobblehead over here because they have this podcast on the No Filter Network called Deuces Wild because Eric Burns was number 22 and Will Clark was number 22, and they actually get together. Eric Burns is a lot younger than Will, but he grew up watching Will just like I did, and they sit there and they just talk about a lot of crap that's going on in baseball. And Will's obviously a Giant, and he's within the Giant organization. And it was just fun last night. I'm sitting on my phone watching this thing because they do it live and interacting with them. And they talk about like Eric Burns, who has been retired for like 10 years, and Will Clark. They got batting cages in their house. They still go out and hit like 200 balls a day because that's what they did for so long. But hitting 200 balls a day, you may get, 20, 30 thrown at you in a game, but they hit 200 a day or more because that's what they needed to do. They needed to recognize, they needed to hone that skill, just like you're doing with the plane. Like, you've been through the scenario multiple times. You practiced what would happen if this happened over and over again, just to make sure that if you came across that situation, you handled it like you did.
Yep. And it's funny because in the world of baseball, of course, you've got a men on base or whatever, you've got pressure. In the world of flying or the world of jumping or whatever, it's your life.
Right.
And so you start wondering, how important is it? It's extremely important. And repetition is, essential to actual getting quality performance. It's just absolutely essential. And that's why I love that phrase about, listen, real professionals practice till they can't get it wrong.
Right.
And that's huge. Just huge for people when they practice.
Even knowing, though, that they practice till they can't get it wrong, but it's still possible that they could get it wrong.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, I think the thing about baseball that's so stunning versus like basketball, right, is you're basically going to make it to the Hall of Fame if you're north of 300.
Yep.
Batting average north of 300. That's 3-10,
Yep.
right? In basketball, if you shot 3 for 10, yeah, you're gone, baby.
Yep.
I mean, it's football. Can you imagine a quarterback 3 for 10? Right? I mean, in baseball, think about how hard that is, right?
Yeah.
The advantage of the pitcher has. I mean, it's amazing. And you see guys like you remember Rod Carew, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was he, a career 360 hitter or something?
It's nuts. And
Yeah,
you
it's
think
pretty
about
amazing.
the thing that you have to think about too, that's amazing to me. Like, I was thinking about it this week because I just got back from Arizona. I was at spring training and I was watching, like, as the Giants, they rotate through these players. They pretty much have their starting lineup in the game, but they're practicing, right, to get ready for the season. And they got this guy named Tyler Rogers who they've had for a while. And he's kind of like Dennis Eckersley. He throws that underarm submarine style where, like, his hand is like 2 inches off the ground and he's throwing strikes when he's coming down and he's releasing the ball. It's nuts. And I was just thinking about that, and I was thinking about, like, he gets up, he gets a ground ball hit to him. He didn't submarine the ball, so he's got to know how to throw overhand, underhand. He does both of them. He's got to throw it to first base, and he throws overhand. I'm like, I wonder if that was hard for him. But that's what you get too. Like, you get people who throw differently because everyone has a different arm angle. They have a different arm slot. Their bodies are built differently. And you have to adjust to every single pitcher that throws to you. I remember when I was playing baseball, we had a little kid who threw sidearm, and you come in there and that ball coming at a different angle just looks so weird. And you have to adjust to that. You have to practice for that. You have to learn how to hit that ball coming from a different arm slot. So every pitcher is different.
Right, and it didn't bother you when they were like a left-hander throwing sidearm and you were a right-handed hitter. It didn't bother you because it came from way the hell over there.
Yep.
But if he was a right-handed pitcher and you were a right-handed batter, it felt like he started the ball on the other side of you, right?
Yep.
And you never got comfortable on how far inside it was.
Yeah, it's coming
Right.
across. It's coming across your body. I mean, it's just weird, but
Yeah.
it's cool to think of it that way because everyone always thinks of these obstacles that you have and that you can't get through them. But it really is just being prepared for that situation, and you can't be prepared for that situation if you're just walking into the box without the practice of knowing that that's coming.
And one of the psychologists talked about how we do in life, that we are live like in your profession, you're live.
Right.
You don't practice what you do.
Yeah.
But you do have repetitions of what you do, right? But you don't get to practice. You don't get to hone your craft, so to speak. You're literally live all the time.
Right.
And so it's really kind of a different feel to somebody that has this game posture, right? Instead of you having a game day, you have a game morning, a game lunch, a game afternoon, right? Your game is all the time. So it is a very different feel for people. There isn't any letdown and there's no practice.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, you get, I don't know. I don't know if I'm pushing back on. I feel like what I do, like as a sales call deal, like I went in there in the beginning thinking, this will be easy. And then I realize that I do have to practice, but I also realize that there's situations that I cannot control. And once I got past that, like, it's like with baseball, the pitcher, you can't control who the pitcher is that day, but you can control how you react to that pitcher. Well, same thing with a sales call. You walk into a house, I can't stop the fact that that person is going to get another quote, but what I can do is I can give them all the information necessary. And I can't tell you how many times like that person's like, oh, I'm going to get another quote. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, here's some things to know, and just make sure that they know everything that I know. And then there's been times where I've told them about, like, we sell exterior shades and we have one that handles 25 miles an hour wind and one that handles 50 miles an hour wind. And wind here is a big thing. Well, the competition will come in there and say, well, ours will handle 80 miles an hour. Well, there's not one that'll handle 80 miles an hour that you have control of. Just make sure that if they tell you things like this, that you actually see it in writing, because they will tell you that. And I will tell you 100% that is not possible. There's this one kind of screen that does that, but they don't have it. And then a lot of times they'll call me back. It's like, yeah, they were a lot cheaper, but they couldn't tell me, or they couldn't prove to me. Just like you said, they told me this, but then when it came down to it, they had nowhere to prove it. And so we're going to go with you because you were honest with us. And even though you're a little bit more, we still want that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just performance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knowing things that, and knowing, doing that background knowledge, having that background knowledge because you've paid attention to what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's astronomically true. Yeah. It's huge, huge impact. And again, we always go back to the same thing of, repetition is the mother of skill.
Right.
Right. But you have to have quality reps.
Right.
You can have bad reps, right? And that doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, there's times where you walk into a situation and there is not a thing you can do, and maybe you're not in the right frame of mind, or maybe you forget something. That's it. It's just keep doing it, keep practicing, because it's the only way you're going to get any better.
Very true.
Yeah. Well, awesome. We are that was Maxim 11, and we got next week. We got Maxim 12. We're almost through the Maxims, and we're going to get into some of the essays and start talking about the stories and things like that. Exciting to get the book out. If you guys haven't checked it out, it's on Amazon. It's called Ars Victorious: What Makes Life Better. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. Nikki's already got a copy, and it's there. So if you guys want to check it out, go check it out. And Robert and I will be breaking this thing down for a while now. So we're continuing through this.
Appreciate you.
Yep. Thanks for being here. And until next time, I challenge you to find a shape of success. We'll see you tomorrow.